Okay, welcome to the third take of this video. First take, one of my cats was trying to break out of the office. Second take, one of my kids was trying to break into the office. So this time it's going to work perfect. All right. So as part of running my blog, I pay attention to the content that is popular, that gets a lot of traffic. And I noticed a while ago that the content I wrote about adding basic sorting to tables was really, really popular. And it's actually a topic that I've covered multiple times on my blog. Back in 2018, I talked about using Vue.js to add sorting to a table. In 2022, in March, I did this vanilla JavaScript example of it. And a couple months later, I did one with Alpine JS. And then in March of 2023, I did a web component version of it. And I think that is my favorite. And while I don't have time to teach you about web components in this little 5-minute video I want to do, I will link to a presentation I gave about web components if you're interested. But I thought I'd kind of show you this web component, show you how it works, and explain why I like it so much. So you have a simple table here, and it's actually not that big, about 8 or 9 rows. But you can imagine if it was a lot bigger and with more columns, it'd be hard to process. And this table is just just a table. I am hiding a little bit. I'll show you in a second. But you see, I have a table. I have a T head with columns, T body, and all my rows of data, etc. So what I did was build a web component that then allows me to go in here and say, hey, I can click by name and it sorts by name. I could click by age. And if I click again, it reverse sorts. And I could do the breed, I could do the gender, and just basically sort this as I like. And note that I'm using a cursor CSS on there to make it kind of obvious that you can click. So how does this work? I'm gonna go back to my source code and first show you the part that I was hiding. All I did was wrap this with a table sort web component tag, and that's the beginning. And at the end here is the closing tag. And then I wrote some JavaScript, obviously. So I'll kind of walk through how this web component works. And again, if you've never seen web components, it's a class. I define the behavior and logic. And like the very last thing I did, and I'll scroll down here to the bottom, this is where I essentially register it and make table-sort work. But from the top, I begin by just initializing some information. I'm going to need to know the data in the table. I'm going to need to know the last thing you sorted by and whether you're sorting upwards or downwards. And the reason for that is when you click on a column, my default is to sort ascending. If you click on the same column again, I want to reverse that sort. So I need to know what direction we're currently going and what you last sorted by. So basic logic, I look inside this web component for the table tag, and there should only be one. I do a little bit of logic there where if I can't find it, I just in. I am going to skip these lines. I'm going to come back to them a little bit later, but once I have found the table, I then look inside it for a T body and T head. These are optional HTML tags, and not everybody uses them. But if you do, it gives more context to the tabular data in the DOM. So I'm requiring these. I then look at my table body, and I get all of the rows of information. And what I start doing is essentially, you know, scrolling over, not scrolling over, iterating over each of these rows and getting each TD element and then adding it to a list, essentially to an array of arrays. Now, I mentioned I wasn't going to talk about this, but I'll scroll back up. In order to allow for numeric sorting, I have my web component take a attribute called numeric, which will just be the column to treat as numeric. And we'll go back to HTML And let me scroll back up there, and you can see there I'm saying the fourth column is numeric. By the way, I'm not using zero-based index because I want it to make sense when you look at it. But that is essentially how I handle flagging what columns are going to be numeric. And so again, when I'm looking over my rows of data, looking at the TD cells, gathering all this in, and I'm basically in my data variable, I have a copy of all the data that is in the HTML table. Now, after that, I then look for the headers. I have a reference to the table head. I look for the TH elements. I iterate over each. This is where I add the style for the pointer cursor. And then I add the click event that's going to do the sorting. All right. So I will not do render table yet. I'll go in the sort column. This is what happens when you click. And essentially it is, am I sorting the same column as last time? If so, I'm going to flip the direction. Otherwise, I just default to ascending equals true. And once I have that, I can look at my copy at that, and that is within this.data. And then I do my sorting, and it's all based on this I value, which is the numeric index that you clicked on. So each those TH elements, element 0, 1, 2, etc., reference those columns. And that's how my sort works. Render table, which I skipped over, basically says I'm going to blow away the existing table and rewrite it. And you can see essentially I'm just iterating over this.data, iterating over all the values in this 2D array, basically, and writing it out. Now, this is imperfect. Like, if I had anything in the cells that was not part of the data, like some extra layout or maybe a button or whatever, it would not work well. But when I have, and let me get back to the HTML, just kind of simple data in there, this is going to work just fine. And again, you can see it here. I can sort by anything and then reverse my sort. And that's it. And why I love that this is a web component is that if for some reason my web component's broken, and I did have a bug in this that I fixed today, but if this is broken, or if they have JavaScript blocked, or if anything else goes wrong, nothing breaks. It's just an HTML table, period. And so, if for some reason it's not broken but takes a long time to load, the person at least still gets that HTML table there. They can look at it, they can try to parse it, whatever. And eventually when my web component's loaded and running and all that, then they get the enhanced ability. Anyway, if you have any questions about this, let me know. I'm going to link to all the blog posts I did about table sorting, including the one today where I fixed this demo. And again, let me know if you have any questions.